Hey folks, so today I am on a phone interview with Andrew Jones, the Andrew Jones, and here we have him. Andrew.
Yes, hello there.
Hello.
Good to talk to you.
So thanks so much for, I know you have a busy schedule, but thanks so much for having the interview with us today. And so my first question to you would be, you've been obviously doing this for a very long time. And so let's wind back to the first time you were interested in making speakers. So I want to hear a little bit about how you got started.
Okay. Well, my first comment is, why is it obvious I've been doing it a long time? And do I look that old? Yeah, going back. So I got interested in hi-fi, electronics first and then hi-fi at a very early age. And I have an identical twin brother, and we both got interested in electronics early, pre-teens. And then my father had got one of these all-in-one radiograms that you put across the corner in the room, and he was looking to get something new. And we'd been reading in electronic magazines at that time, not even hi-fi mags, that, you should get separates. So we persuaded him to get separates. The quality was probably no better, but it was technically separates. And that led us into getting interested in music and sound. And so by early teens, we're into hi-fi. And for some reason, I got interested in speakers. So instead of building electronics, I built speakers. I never finished anything that I built, which is why I should have maybe stayed in research rather than product development. A lot less stress.
So do you remember do you remember the first speaker that you made?
Well, the first speaker that I attempted to make was a transmission line speaker, of all things. And I remember getting all the panels of wood cut and storing them under the spare bed in the back bedroom. But I never actually finished building it. I also attempted, at that time, there was a speaker that was very popular in the UK called the Jim Rogers JR149.
Yes.
So same componentry as in the LS35A, but built into a cylindrical aluminium enclosure. So I even tried to build a cylindrical aluminium enclosure by taking a flat sheet of wood, screwing it to some wooden discs, and me and my dad rolling it back and forth on the garden path to try and bend it around these wooden discs. That didn't actually work either. Then I turned my attention to, even if I finish building a speaker, how do I know what it's supposed to sound like? Being very inexperienced, how do I know what's supposed to be better or good? So I turned my attention to, I need to be able to measure it. So I actually started building test equipment. I didn't have a really good measuring microphone, of course. I'm on a budget being a teenager. But I did start building test equipment. Something based on Dick Heiser's work of time delay spectrometry. So I actually built a version of a time delay spectrometer that could tune out room reflections. So that was my initial path.
Yeah, I tried, so a little disclosure here, I tried building my own LS35As, didn't pan out so well. So I can understand. So now I reviewed your Elac Navis on this channel very recently, and I touched upon the idea of you using the Bash amplifier, and but I wanted you to really explain to the viewers what a Bash amplifier is, because I think I believe it's the first time being used in this way in a powered speaker, if I'm not wrong.
Well, it's the first time for Elac that I've done a powered speaker. Bash technology we've used in our small integrated 2-channel amplifier that has the room EQ, digital decoding, and all that good stuff. we've been using bash technology for subwoofers for a very long time. So the idea behind bash is it's a way of improving the efficiency of the regular Class AB amplifier. Efficiency matters in certain applications. When you want small, lots of power in a small package, you want an efficient amplifier, because when an amplifier is not efficient, it wastes a lot of the power as heat, so you need big heat sinks. You need transistors that can withstand lots of instantaneous high temperatures. And you also need a bigger power supply to cover for the losses in the amplifier. So everything gets bigger and more expensive. So if you can make an amplifier efficient, you can package it smaller and save energy. So the traditional way of doing that is with Class D amplification, which has the potential of reaching 95% efficiency, whereas best case for a standard Class AB amplifier is somewhere around 65-67% best case efficiency. So if you look at the amount that's wasted as heat, in a 95% efficient amplifier, only 5% of the energy is wasted as heat. In a 65% efficient amplifier, 35% is wasted as heat. So 7 times more heat than in a Class D amplifier. So in subwoofers where you want lots of power, because everyone wants a small box these days, so you have to have lots of power to overcome the inefficiency of a small box, then Class D has been very popular. And Class D over the years has got better and better and better in terms of sound quality, and now stands the test of being just an alternative technology for high-end, good-sounding amplification. But we've been using this alternative technology, like we say, bash. The reason why a Class AB amplifier is not efficient is that the supply rails are fixed. Let's say on a 100-watt amplifier, they're plus or minus 40 volts. So no matter what the signal voltage you need to reproduce, you've always got the voltage from the power supply being developed across the output devices. So it proves to be inefficient. So if you can modulate those supply rails to be only just enough for the instantaneous output signal that you require from the amplifier, then you can make the Class AB amplifier function much more efficiently. So that's the basic technology. There's various ways of doing it, but the version we use, which is called bash, essentially does that. You could imagine it's a power supply is basically a Class D amplifier.
Right.
And so you put the input signal both to the power supply and to the Class AB amplifier, and it adjusts the output voltage of that power supply to be just enough. A little bit of headroom so you don't get caught out. The trick was making it work over a wide bandwidth, all the way beyond 20 kilohertz, so that it doesn't get caught out with transients. But that's the basic technology. And since in an active speaker, you don't have much space, then efficient amplification is useful, and the job is made easier because we're splitting it into smaller bandwidths. It's a 3-way system. So the base amplifier and the mid-range amplifier don't have to operate all the way up to 20K. Mm-hmm. The tweeter can be a pure Class AB because the average power required for a tweeter is so low, right, that we don't run into power or heat problems with the amplifier that's used on the tweeter. So that's just a regular Class AB.
Right. Okay, so the next question is, you mentioned in, I think, Darko's interview that the Elac Navis is time-aligned. So the tweeter is set back a little bit, as well as the mid-range, I believe. Can you explain to me the limitations of the time alignment and what was in challenge of designing the Navis?
Well, we have to be careful about what we consider as time alignment. In a perfect system, Time alignment means everything is aligned along with the crossover slope such that the speaker is a minimum phase system. Now, there really is almost zero chance, unless you use some very complex DSP with large latency, there's very little chance of having a truly time-aligned speaker, minimum phase at all angles, both on and off axis. And most of the solutions that are proposed, they put severe demands on the bandwidth of the drivers and the excursion requirements of the tweeter. So it's not perfect timeline in that sense. But it does, by virtue of the tweeter being down the center of the mid-range, it puts the voice coils closer in alignment, not perfectly. The voice coil for the woofer is still behind the voice coil of the tweeter, but when you add the delay due to the speed of sound through the voice coil former and part of the cone, then they start to become roughly located at the same point in space.
So the offset
the
is
crossovers themselves.
So the offset the offset equals about 0 approximately. The offset between the speakers.
The offset is closer to 0 than it would be in a regular speaker.
Mm-hmm.
But it's maintained at all angles because it's a concentric driver.
As
soon as you have space drivers, they'll only be time aligned in that nature. They'll only be time aligned on one axis. As soon as you move away from that axis, they will no longer be time aligned. So that's one of the downfalls of believing you've got a fully time aligned minimum phase speaker. It can only exist on one axis unless the drivers are concentric. I
see. Now, so in designing, I know you designed a lot of speakers, and you probably get this question a lot. Now, I'm gonna make this very difficult for you. If you had to choose one thing in a speaker that is the most important in a speaker design, whether it be the crossover, the cabinet, the tweeter, the woofer, whatever it is, I know, at the end, everything is important altogether. But if you had to choose one that you have to take extra caution for, what would it be?
Well, it all starts with the drivers. That's the first thing I'd say. So that's my priority. And then I'm a big believer in concentric drivers. So the first thing I will always try and do is design a system that incorporates a concentric driver. But that does put constraints on me because I prefer to use a concentric as part of a three-way system rather than just a two-way. And so that condition means either I can't go below a certain price point without suffering the consequences, and my network has to be more complex. There's a lot of things that I have to do in order to use that solution, but that's always my go-to, that I want to use a concentric driver.
When was the first time you started loving concentric designs?
It was when I was at KEF. So at that time, when I joined KEF, I joined in the research department. I eventually crossed over to become chief engineer in charge of product development under our technical director, Laurie Fincham, who was my mentor. But while I was in research, Laurie and the previous chief engineer came up with this idea of trying to do a concentric driver. Now, the idea of a concentric driver is not totally new. Of course, Tannoy were doing the dual concentric from the 50s onwards. There's all sorts of prior art on doing concentric drivers, but what KEF had done was they were the first ones to develop using the newly available neodymium magnet that gave possibilities of shrinking the overall size of the tweeter to sit on the pole piece of the bass driver. And we started experimenting with that, and then I was involved in a project with Europe to do research on room acoustics. So we built within an anechoic chamber in the Technical University in Copenhagen, we built a 32 speaker array or with discrete DSP, so could simulate room acoustics within an anechoic chamber. All of those drivers were concentric drivers, hand built by myself, before we even introduced UniQ to the market. So that was quite an undertaking. Like many hours sat on my bench assembling tweeters and assembling woofers and putting the tweeters in and then coming up with EQ. So that's the first time I got involved with that.
I see. Okay. So you're a fan of dual concentric designs. Now, the new speaker that's coming in for review in my channel is the Elac Vela. That has the German tweeter. And I believe you are also designing it as well, if I'm correct?
No. So we have a development team in Germany.
Oh, okay.
And now my development here. So it just happened that because of time constraints and resources, we were due to update 2 series of loudspeakers that were very important product lines from the traditional Elac. And that was the 240 series and the 400 series. So the 400 series was redesigned by Rolf, our chief engineer in Germany, to become Vela. And because of workload, the 240 series became Carina, and that was developed by myself.
Oh, I see. So you don't have anything to do with the Vela series?
Not the Vela, no.
Oh, I see. Okay,
And,
because
it's no commentary on them. It's simply that's the way the workload was split.
Oh, I see. Okay, so because I saw in a Hi-Fi News magazine that you designed it, so they have that information incorrect. Probably need to email them on that one.
If they said it for Vela, that was wrong. If they said it for Carina, that would be correct.
Okay, I see. Okay. All right. So anything you want to add to this interview in terms of the Elac Navis? Are you happy with the design?
I'm actually very happy. We wanted to test the waters for doing active speakers, but we wanted to do it slightly different. We wanted to do it sort of old school and sort of new school. So old school is just a simple, traditional active speaker with analog active crossovers. New school is putting everything into a speaker. DSP, processing, digital filters for the crossovers, switching amplifiers, capacity amplifiers for power amplification, and everything is built in. That restricts, to some degree, the capability of that speaker. Certainly in terms of upgrade or playing around with the sound, because everything is packaged together, it is your whole system. And it meets the needs of new audiophiles who want simplicity but connectivity, but it kind of cuts out traditional audiophiles who want to play around with choice of equipment and cables and all the rest of it.
That's right, yeah.
So we thought we'd split it into 2 boxes. We'd make the speaker itself all analog, so that if you're using a turntable as your source, you're not digitizing your analog signal within the speaker. At the same time, we give it connectivity by building in a wireless receiver module that's deactivated while you're in analog mode, but when you switch to wireless, it now activates the wireless receiver, and we have a wireless transmitter that is a streamer. So it's a custom wireless transmission protocol between the 2, so you get synchronization between left and right, and subwoofer. It also broadcasts a 3rd channel for a subwoofer. Mm-hmm. But now it's a streamer that it's a room-ready endpoint. It's Spotify Connect, it's AirPlay, Bluetooth, DNLA compliant, and an endpoint for our discovery. So it now gives you connectivity as an optional box. At the same time, the main speaker itself satisfies the or almost satisfies the audiophile market. The only choice we've taken away is panel amplification, but you can still change your preamp and your DAC, your turntable, whatever, and use it in the context of a traditional high-end audio system. So that's what I like about what we've done for the approach. And from a sound point of view, obviously I'm going to say I like it. But what I did find, I remember setting it up for review for Absolute Sound. And once we got it set up in the listening space, I sat down and listened to a few tracks, and I said to the reviewer, in a way, right now, I don't care what you write about this, because all I know is this is the sound I was hoping people would be able to get when they put it into a relatively simple system in their home. I'm really enjoying the sound. It just has an ease to it that makes it enjoyable to listen to. It's currently, out of all the speakers I've done, it's my favorite.
Oh, okay. That's okay. So that brings me to the question. You design these speakers, how much time do you spend on listening to them? Because, so my experience is I try to design a speaker, I keep listening to them, and at the end of it, I've heard, it's like you practicing one single song. You get tired of it. You may sound good to other people singing it, but then, at the end, when you sing it, you don't enjoy it as much. So, my question really is, how do you keep yourself motivated listening to the same speaker over and over again, and how long do you listen to them for?
I've always got the motivation. I've never lost the interest and the passion in audio, even though I'm working in it day in, day out. I'm always thinking of new ideas that I want to try out, and I enjoy going out to the shows, showing off what the speakers can do. So I'm always listening, not just privately in my lab, but when I go out to shows, that's a good testing ground for me. One of the things to realize is speakers are used in lots of different situations. A speaker is not just a speaker is the room as well, plus the system that's driving it. So by me going out to the shows all over the world in all sorts of different rooms and setting them up to try and give a presentation, I get a lot of exposure to how the system sounds in different places. And that's very valuable feedback when I'm designing. Hopefully I've finished the design before I go out to these shows, but that knowledge is with me for the next time I develop something. And although I am prone to turning up at shows with prototypes and playing them and listening to them almost for the first time along with the audience, I'll generally say, this is a prototype, which is a good way of fending off criticism, because if people like it, you go, yeah, not bad for a prototype, is it? And if people don't like it, yeah, I know, it's only a prototype. But it is a valuable thing for me to be able to do, to get that exposure to the sound with my favorite music. And when I play music, mostly demo tracks, it's still music I enjoy, and I can still, at the end of the evening, by the time you've spent so much effort to set up to get good sound at a show, I often find myself coming back in the evening and just sitting down and listening for pleasure, not just for choosing the tracks for the next day. And it'll be a lot of those same tracks that I use as demo material. I don't want to be... Occasionally you'll have tracks that you go, yeah, this one is a hi-fi demo piece. But mostly it has to be musically interesting to me as well. So I do spend a lot of time listening. I still enjoy doing that, and I still enjoy coming up with new speakers. Whether it's expensive or affordable, there's still challenges. That's the thing. Find the challenge in any design that you're doing. There's always going to be one. And always look to do it better than you did last time, or better than you think you are able to do. It's a level of expectation that you have. Don't just settle for, this is only a $250 speaker, so it's not that much of a challenge to make it sound good enough. The answer is good enough is not good enough. I want people to be surprised by the value in the sound.
That's very inspiring. Thank you so much, Andrew. So that's pretty much it. And so thank you so much for having us here today. And I'll hopefully interview you in the future as well.
Okay, anytime. My pleasure.
All right, sounds good. Thanks so much. So there you have it, folks.
Thanks.
And I'll
Bye-bye.
see you guys in the next one.